at that point I made a decision on not using wood, not using Portland cement if possible, and set some design rules for myself to build a vacation home in the Caribbean. That turned over the next 5 years into a series of experiments and basically garage type projects. And eventually it got to a point where I realized I had something, I created something unique. And the original goal was to build a vacation home in the Caribbean, and I set some crazy design rules, 200-mile-an-hour hurricane rated. We're now 245 miles an hour, Miami-Dade County approved. I think the only one in the US. It had to be manhandleable, made in California where I lived at the time, stuffed in a container, shipped to the Caribbean, and build a house in 1 week. Everyone said it was impossible. And we've since proved that we can do everything that we originally set out to do and more. So it evolved then into other things that can now be used for infrastructure protection. So next slide, please. So here's where we really started. We were looking for deficiencies in the current building materials, and the goal was to set out and overcome those issues. So we chose fires, floods, hurricanes, earthquakes, and more recently, infrastructure protection. Next slide, Sharon, please. As we all know, in the last few years, we've gone through all kinds of very strange events with horrendous fires, floods, hurricanes that have broken all records, and earthquakes. The earthquakes have not been too bad, but coming from California and 20 years in LA, it's going to happen sooner or later. Yeah. Next slide, please. So initially the design rules were no wood, no Portland cement, no gypsum board, no silica sand. Silica sand is a common aggregate that's used in plasters and cements and concrete. And if any of you know anything about it, crystalline silica is a carcinogen, and it started being outlawed slowly. California started it in 2008. A lot of companies now are switching from that. We dumped it in 2008 immediately. So things obviously built out of wood are going to burn. The wood splits. You bring wood into a desert environment from a wet environment like Washington and Oregon. By the time it gets here, it's already warped. So we have issues with building in dry climates with wet wood. That's always been a problem. Portland cement, a lot of people don't realize this. 1 ton of cement is 1 ton of CO2 gas, and that's the worst pollutant that we put in our environment.